Welcome back, everyone, to the final day of the bracket stage, or the round robin stage of the International Wildcard Invitational. My name is Daniel C. Pedracos, and joining me for the final 3 games of the day is going to be Indiana, Frosker, and Black. That was a little hard.
I love your shirt.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, but I'm a fan of it.
He's like, I'm going to be on the desk with Frosker, and I got to wear the loudest shirt possible.
Well, I have to keep up, right? I have to do my best. Looking forward, we have 3 final games of the day, but our top 4 are already decided. However, before we start focusing on what's ahead, I want to talk a little bit about that game that we just saw between the Chiefs, or from the Chiefs. It was absolutely insane. They played so well, and unfortunately, they played so well right when it just did not count.
Yeah, unfortunately for our homeboys here from the Oceanic region, the Chiefs will not be moving on. They needed to win, and INTZ needed to lose. That said, we did have a phenomenal performance to see them out of the tournament, so very strong. But it just seems like, when the pressure's off, they're able to step up and perform. But when it's there, stumbling a bit.
Yeah, the joke we're making, of course, is from now on, when the Chiefs go to international events, their coach should just be like, it's already over. Just forget it. Just have fun. Just do what you want to do. It's going to work out great. We swear.
It's nice to go out with a bang, though.
It is. It's great to go out with a bang. And I think that what they have to do is that it's good to end confidently. I think coming up in our next match, too, we've got Detonation Focus Me, who are a little bit in the same boat. They, have a lot to prove. They want to come in. They want to look confident to close out, even if they can't get one of those top 4 spots.
No, you're exactly right. And that was kind of the next thing that I wanted to go to is pride and respect for these regions. Again, international wildcard, it's a kind of a big deal for all of these regions. They take a lot of respect and pride in their own performances, especially the home crowd advantage in Mexico City for a lot of these Latin American teams. But like you said, Detonation Focus Me, there's a massive spotlight actually on Japan right now. Their server just got released, and so there's a lot of media attention. Detonation Focus Me, obviously a long-standing kind of staple of the region. They've been in command for quite a bit. So even though the standings quite aren't in their favor and they had a little bit of a slow start to the tournament, to finish strong here really does matter. It's not just throwaway games.
And aside from just Japan as well, they're such a storied team overall. Detonation Focus Me have struggled so long. They finally got infrastructure just in the last few years. Their analyst/coach Kazu was playing support for them last time we saw them on the international stage here, and finally he is able to just be an analyst, to just be a support staff member. They bring in Eternal, they bring in these Spenu members, and everything should be perfect for them. They figured out all of the problems outside of game, but now there's so many in-game problems that it seems like they just haven't quite learned how to deal with yet.
Well, you also have to understand kind of the context and the narrative for Japan as a region and Detonation Focus Me as a team. The fact that Detonation Focus Me have always been on the top, and it wasn't until I believe last season that they kind of struggled for the first time ever, and there was a lot of competition. So they upgraded the roster, as we do see Detonation Focus Me and Hard Random on your screen right now. Upgraded the roster, brought in the Spin new members, like you said, got that support structure and Kazu and Dragon as their analysts and coaching staff. And then they just dominated people, just absolutely crushed them.
Yeah,
right now in Detonation Focus Me, they are leaps and bounds over the rest of their region. So coming into this, it was kind of like, where does Japan sit? Can we compete internationally? It's not good enough anymore for them to just win domestically. It's about the international pride and the international success.
And I think that's the same story that we see from Hard Random as well. These guys, when we asked about, get in touch with people in the region, get in touch with CIS players and teams, like, what can you tell us about Hard Random? What can you teach us? And they're like, these guys are the SKT. These guys are the undefeated champions.
That's what it always
of
came
CIS,
down to.
Right? This is the Faker. This is the entire team. This is the dream team for CIS. And they're really showing it here today. But for them as well, it's about international representation now. No longer is it the CIS going to be enough when they've tasted this international stage.
And the other thing is, talking about Detonation Focus Me in terms of upgrading their support structure and having that, CIS Hard Random are in the same boat. A lot of the people familiar with the region came to us and be like, yes, this is the SKT of the region, but they also have an incredibly strong support staff behind them. And that's what really opens up a lot of their success.
And overall, we have Kira, a lot of international attention on this guy, of course, during IWCA, played very well in those 1v1 tournaments, clearly a star mechanical player, but, looking down in that support position, the Bard master of this tournament, I think single-handedly the reason that Bard is being banned out here, such a proficient player. Bardo, yes. the only change in the Spanish client as far as I can tell. Just got to add the O there. It's the big difference.
No,
but
talking about, I'm probably going to butcher this, so I apologize. Licorice? Yes.
Unfortunately, your guess is as good as mine.
No, the support player.
Yes.
The support player for Hard Random is incredible. He's really showed up on his Bard performance in particular, like you said. And it's really important going into this matchup specifically because he's against Zerost and Eternal. And historically, the support position has actually been a big issue for Detonation Focus Me. Again, we go back to the fact that their previous support Kazu has now moved into the analyst position. And Zerost is, I don't want to say by far and away the weakest player, but he's definitely a weak link. And it's really up to an Eternal to bypass him through his lackluster lane phase. Zerost is a very cautious player. He doesn't like to go super aggressive, and when you have a Bard, like that already increases your 2v2 dominance tenfold, and so it's really punishing in particular. So the stylistic matchup of Hard Random's Licrit versus Zerost and Eternal, I think is so far in favor for Hard Random, and I would like to see if Detonation Focus Me can execute a lane swap, which most of the Japanese analysts tell me that Detonation Focus Me are one of the few teams that can execute a lane swap in the region.
And definitely not something we've seen as much from this tournament overall. Lane swaps, we see a lot of, we call them, I guess, Australia lanes is what we call them in EU.
The inverted lanes.
The inverted lanes overall. It doesn't quite make as much sense when I'm here in Australia. But, the inverted lanes.
It's upside down, mate.
Yeah. A lot less of a traditional lane swaps, a lot more blind lane swaps, a lot less early invades for vision, and it's a huge change from what we see in other regions, and it feels like we've developed sort of our own meta here at IWCI.
I have the luxury right now that I've been sitting backstage for a while with Carbon, obviously a fantastic jungler of the Oceanic region, particularly Legacy is his team. Go and check him out. And also Soul Strikes, who's been joining our casting team. Talking about blind lane swaps in particular and kind of like nailing down, because it's quite common globally across the region, and why people are doing blind lane swaps when before we used to see very deep level 1 wards. And it comes down to this issue of it's more of a priority, because when you invade level 1 with the lane swap, like Braum or something, just run in, you're guaranteeing that the lane swap is happening. By doing a blind lane swap, yes, you're not guaranteed that the lane swap can happen because the inverted lanes or the standard lanes of the 2v2 on the top side can still be a factor, but it's more about putting your support and your jungle in a position to put the enemy support and jungle in a position. We think about the delayed invades. The support comes down, kind of invades into the jungler, figures out if he's starting on his strong or his weak side of the map, and that's what's so much more important when it comes down to this idea of why are blind lane swaps kind of the standard now.
And we're going to have to see what they decide to do in the early game here, but before we can even get there, we're going to have to take a look at Champion Select. Hard Random, of course, on the blue side. Detonation Focus Me on the red, and the bans are already coming out. Rise, Sivir, Nidalee taking off for a hand at Hard Random as Anivia and the Bardo picked away on Detonation Focus Me. I think no surprises there. Kira's Anivia, absolutely one to be feared, and I can't stop calling it Bardo. It makes me laugh every time. But Bardo taken away from Licrit.
I'm just tilted that I spelled Rise wrong on my paper.
It's a rough life. I don't know. There's 4 letters in that one. That was a little less forgiving. Of course, okay. Alistar the final ban as well, so a lot of attention paid to supports here on the side of Detonation Focus Me, and Hard Random, a little bit more general. Rise, Sivir, and Nidalee taking off the table.
Again, going back to Kira, he used to be known as a one-trick Anivia player. That's going to be his primary champion. Naturally, his champion pool has expanded, but that was kind of the sore thumb sticking out. And it's Graves. We've seen him all tournament. No surprise that he's going to be a priority pick, especially from this blue side.
Absolutely no surprise. I mean, just in the last few games, we've seen the raw power that Graves can bring to the table. Earlier today, I think we saw Detonation Focus Me utilize the Graves so well in the hands of Catch, so good to take it away from him and to give it over to Stayhos.
What's really brilliant about Graves, even from blue or red side, is that he has the flexibility, which is kind of a very common trend with the more carry-oriented junglers. Nidalee, Kindred, and Graves is kind of your top 3 globally, is that he gets to choose if I'm going to power farm or if I'm going to level 3 gank, and he's successful in both avenues, and I think this really is massive for both these junglers, Catch and I'm going to say PvP, because I'm not that acrobatic with my tongue. We're not going to try to go for that one. But Catch is also a very farm-heavy jungler, and PvP, despite his namesake, has been also fairly farm-heavy.
Yes, overall, of course. On the opposite side for Detonation Focus Me, they are getting some power of their own. Kindred, maybe not quite as popular as the Graves, but still a good pick.
The only problem with Kindred is where her initial power spike is. So if you think, a lot of it is also determined by RNG, where your marks will appear and how quickly she's able to pick up and assemble those marks into a late game devour. So the thing about Kindred is, yes, she is incredibly strong, especially around your monster objective control, Dragon, and Baron, and her ability to burn that, but it takes quite a bit to ramp her up. The snowball can be there, whereas Graves, you know for sure I'm going to get this 2-item power spike, I'm going to be strong at this time in the game. Kindred has much more flexibility in there, and so I call Graves kind of the more consistent threat versus Kindred.
Yeah, but the other consistent threat we have to talk about is this Echo going into the top lane for Detonation Focus Me. I believe it still has a 100% win rate, although most of the time it's been banned out here. Absolutely, I think the strongest top laner, I think we can say, and one that's been a terror across every region.
Spawn's not here, but we would both argue with you.
Well, no. I mean, tell me. Enlighten me as to the Echo. Because when I see Echo...
It's Echo versus Poppy is what it comes down to in terms of like your two bruisers and then Maokai kind of taking over for the tanks. And I don't debate that Echo from a numbers point is very, very potent and powerful. But Poppy's ultimate has just put an X there of how much gold that's worth, because if you boot out two members that are worth 15,000 gold, guess what? That's a 15,000 gold ultimate.
I mean, a definitely fair overall. We'll have to see if the Poppy is going to be the option against the Echo. Although it looks like we may have something a little bit more interesting from hard random. I'm going to wait to talk about the hover over. If there's anything I've learned from IWCI, there could be an Elise in the bottom lane in the next 30 seconds.
Quickly touch. Azir, Lucian, Trundle, Ezreal. Trundle, Ezreal I really like as a duo, especially because that's going to be the Trundle support coming in for Eternal. Just because anytime Trundle lays down his pillar, it pretty much guarantees free skill shots from Ezreal. Because they're slowed, they can't move, possibly they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. Guess what? Mystic shot to the face. See ya, mate.
And additionally, I really like the Trundle as an option just to preemptively kind of deny tank picks from hard random. When you pick that Trundle, when you know it's going to support role, it makes it that much more difficult to pick up something like a Maokai, like a Poppy, to deal with it. However, on the opposite side, hard random getting their hands on this Azir, Kira, a very accomplished Azir player, and may have been known as an innovative one trick for a while, but he's pretty proficient on everything these days, and we'll have to see how well he can do with this, because it's been a very powerful pick in the tournament overall.
Ooh, Soraka, the last change.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one, I think, because last time we saw, I haven't seen Soraka internationally in a long time. I don't know about you. But
the issue with Soraka has always been in competitive play that she is very easy to gank and very easy to abuse that lane if you choose to abuse it. Now, being put in tandem with Lucian, Lucian's going to compensate a lot for her, I'm not going to call it a weak lane phase because that's not quite correct, but obviously he's a big bully. He's very flexible himself. It allows Soraka to kind of step back. She doesn't need to peel for Lucian as, say, someone like a Jhin or an Ashe who are very low mobility. They're not self-sufficient, so you don't need your support to assist you there. So I think the more important combination is the fact that it's Soraka with Lucian.
And it'll be interesting to see how that matches up against Trundle Ezreal. The Trundle, no, that can't even be a flex pick anymore. Who am I kidding? I was like, Trundle could go top lane, but then I don't think we're going to see an Echo support, despite the fact that we've seen some more interesting choices here overall. So, Soraka, Lucian, bottom lane.
They've got like 20 junglers.
It kind of makes perfect sense, though, for the tournament overall. Because
no, it's maybe Echo mid, Gragas top. It's Japan. I don't know what's going on.
All right. So every time I think something's not a flex pick, apparently it is. So we're going to have to wait to see where these are swapped. And so I kind of want to avoid looking at that side for a moment until they decide exactly where everything's going to go. Maybe it is the Gragas mid. But let's talk about the side of hard random. We've got the Maokai, the Graves, the Azir, the Lucian, and kind of the more interesting pick here, the Soraka. How do you feel about the team composition here from hard random?
Well, I don't get to look at it anymore, but I do get to look at their beautiful faces. That's fine. No, it's cool. I wrote it down. The cool thing about hard random's composition, I feel like it's very well balanced in terms of where their power spikes are. I always like to talk about this idea of like a baton being passed around. So there's never a point in the game where you're weak. So first and foremost, the early game baton, that's in Graves' hands. He's like, man, I'm Graves. We've been seeing him smack around people all tournament long. He's got a lot of kill pressure, especially with the Maokai in the top lane. And that's the big thing about Maokai and why I really think he returned to the meta is this idea that snowball junglers or carry-oriented junglers are way in vogue, and Maokai just offers you a free kill or a free gank at any time. Twisted Advance, guess what, Nidalee? You get a free spear. Twisted Advance, guess what, Graves? You're already...
and it can be so brutal. We've seen the same thing from Lissandra in the mid lane from, I think, every region. Just walk up, lock him down, blow him up. So much damage coming out of these jungle picks. Kindred maybe not so much, but both Nidalee and Graves have been absolute terrors.
It's the burst damage, especially when speaking in tandem with Lissandra, although she's not in this game. But the big thing about Lissandra and why I don't think she works as well with Kindred is because Kindred doesn't have the ability to 100-0 someone during the duration of a frozen tomb, whereas someone like Nidalee or Graves with their upfront burst damage does. It's the same idea as when Kha'Zix was very potent and powerful, he worked really well with Lissandra because Kha'Zix was the only jungler that when Lissandra locks you down, guess what? Bam, dead.
And we may not have that set up in the mid lane, of course, Azir, not quite as strong in terms of that point-and-click CC ability.
Did he have double teleport?
Oh, we did not get to see, I think, because there's still enough time for them to swap over summoners. So I think we're going to have to wait overall. But do you think teleport would be the right support choice summoner? Because it's what he picked anyway, as we are going to hop into game here.
I'm actually fairly against Azir running teleport.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not awful. Oh, that's amazing. I was just listening to the voiceover. But lead us into the game, Siva.
I had the same experience yesterday. The Spanish client has some excellent voice work, but of course this is going to be hard random on the blue side. Detonation Focus Me on the red. A little bit of poke coming out here already. But let's tunnel back in on the mid lane before this game gets started. We're talking about an Echo versus Azir matchup, not one we've seen in a very long time.
The thing about Echo... The thing about Azir, especially levels 1 through 3, and he typically runs the Thunderlord's proc, so able to execute that, is getting underneath his Sand Soldier, which Echo has tools to do so. He's got his little, what do they call it, phase dive? Somersault? I'm going to call it Somersault.
Somersault, got it.
He's got the Somersault.
We'll change the name there.
So if Azir ever throws out his Sand Soldier far away from him, which he likes to do to keep everyone at arm's length, if Echo at level 3 or even at level 2, depending on how he's going to scale himself, gets underneath him, you can look for a very punishing all-in on Azir.
Definitely going to be an option. We'll have to see how this laning phase plays out, especially Saros. Haven't really seen Echo from him, and Kira we know to be successful, but both these guys, I think, some of the strongest mechanical players in their respective roles at this tournament. And now we're seeing the lane swap start to come out. This is going to be the first game in a while.
And it's that blind lane swap that we were talking about, and this is what it empowers. Liquid, super aggressive on the Soraka here, and it's about putting down the enemy jungler as opposed to guaranteeing the lane swap for you. So that's why it's kind of become the standard, and it's nice to see both of the supports respond appropriately here.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see what they decide to do with this one standard, of course.
Oh, the level 1 Soraka gank.
Rush this one down. This is... is this the clear love? Are we seeing it now here? Oh, Echo doing a little bit of damage there, but overall, Liquid just trying to get a little bit more pressure in the mid lane. I guess take full advantage of the fact that Lucian is just free to push in this bottom lane.
I don't care what anyone says. That guy's a boss. He just level 1 Soraka ganked on mid lane.
I think there was... I don't really have a whole lot to add to that. Yeah, the level 1 Soraka gank.
What does Azir say there? Like, what you got? I got Star Call. I'm going in.
Let's get him. We got all this hard CC. We got the setup.
No, of course he alleviated some pressure onto Azir. You see that in the slight CS discrepancy, 10 to 8. You know what? I'm going to give that 2 CS all on Liquid in that gank.
Huge advantage. Liquid, of course, known as his playmaking support. And there is pretty big question mark with this pick overall. If he can be the same playmaking support that we've seen from his Bard, from his other picks. And have to wonder what he can do. Already aggressive in the mid lane as the first towers appear to be falling.
But this is massive. Look at the advantage that Hard Random have on the tower versus the wave and the chip damage that Detonation Focus Me have across map. It looks like they are going to back up. Again, the creep aggro has changed since the wave come in, so it gives a lot more control for Smurf here, and he does a wonderful job bouncing the wave. And now what it does is it creates this small window of time. So yes, Detonation Focus Me will technically trade tower for tower, but because they're slightly slower on the rotation, it opens up a window of opportunity where Hard Random can make some choices. They can either go for and set up Rift Herald, they can maybe set some Deep Vision, possibly even gank the mid lane. Like that's the beautiful iteration and kind of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Adaptations of lane swaps.
All right, well, we're gonna have to see how Detonation Focus Me to advance this or adapt to this opening. Of course, that ward place in the bush, very intelligent coming in from the side of Detonation Focus Me, making sure that they know that the Lucian and Soraka have swapped back. So some good information provided there. As Kira, I don't think we can give all the credit over to that early Soraka gank, but looking quite comfortable in that mid lane.
You know, I'm going to give it all to Soraka.
You earned it. Got it.
He's trying to shove this one in, force out the TP from Saros. Here he comes.
Interesting choice. Going straight in on the minion, maybe looking for some trading. Nope. Just get into the lane as quickly as possible. Doesn't want to miss any CS as Stayhost now continuing to farm up in the jungle. 7 CS discrepancy between the junglers.
Can also help you hold your wave by TPing to the creep, because obviously you keep it alive and you maintain creep aggro as opposed to teleporting to the tower. It doesn't help him there, but it could.
Good. I mean, good little bit of strategy, of course, to consider. Obviously, no longer getting the cooldown reduction from teleporting to the tower, so where you teleport, a little bit easier to make that decision, or a little bit more complicated, rather, to make that decision since there's no clear advantage. Detonation Focus Me now moving to take the second tower. Soraka and Lucian on the top side doing the same, but 4 members here for Detonation Focus Me, and only 2 so far in the top lane. 2 more on the way, however.
The thing is you have great burn damage with the double tap out of Miracle here on the Lucian. He's actually quite good at sieging towers. They are going to pull Smurf to the top lane. I was curious if they were going to separate their resources, maybe send Maokai and Graves to contest for Rift Herald before pulling Lucian, but looks like we're just going to have a gentleman's agreement. Both towers are going down, but advantage to DFM, and they do have a pretty sizable creep wave, which they're going to continue to push through.
Yeah, of course. Hard Random starting to walk away from this tower, but I'm pretty sure it is going to fall from the creep wave there. Smurf now moving up potentially to take this one.
Really slow on this rotation. This is going to be a massive error if that tower goes down. I wish we could look at bottom.
Well, we have to remember that Detonation Focus Me praised as one of the few teams in Japan that can execute properly on a lane swap, but interestingly enough, backing away from this tower.
No, it's fine that they backed away. I just thought they'd have much more damage than that.
Maybe the relative, I mean, Ezreal compared to Lucian, of course, for tower taking pressure, but
he gets to increase everyone's attack speed.
He's only level 4. Maybe the double point in Q, the double point in E.
I thought that Hard Random might lose more, but because only minimal chip damage goes down, Hard Random actually get a much better trade off of this. They don't take the top tier tower, but it is fairly low, waiting for a stiff breeze. They instead translate pressure into the into the Rift Herald. Oh my goodness.
Those are those moments as a jungler where you kind of forget for a half second that as you kill that tower, that projectile is just going to disappear and not hit you, because for that one moment, that one clenching moment, you're convinced that you're going to die to that final shot. Eternal getting a little bit aggressive there, but not going to follow up too much, just chasing to make sure that they can't back comfortably here on the top side of the map.
But I do want to congratulate Hard Random on kind of that decision-making there to see that Detonation Focus Me push through. Again, separating their resources, they send their bottom lane back to make sure the push can't continue, grab the Rift Herald, and get the tower. So good job. They actually squeeze one extra objective out of that.
Yep, Gragas now being zoned away from the creep wave on the bottom side, but there's 2 members that Nation Focus Me pushing in on the top. Utapon not looking super comfortable yesterday on that Fiora pick, but doing much better in his earlier game today as Nautilus. Hope that he can have the same performance here on the Gragas, but it's still kind of up in the air.
So the thing about Utapon is we do see Saros getting fairly aggressive with the
Oh,
trade.
push back into the tower. Immediate trade of ultimates there. I get excited every time, but Echo's just going to say nope and back out of that one.
See, my mentality is looking at this is they both have ultimates. He's not going to kill either of them. No, Utapon. So Utapon is kind of probably the most famous of any of the players from the region. He's played in multiple positions. Top lane is where he started, then he had a stint in AD carry, which is actually a cool story between Zerost and Utapon. Zerost was formerly on the sister team, Rabbit 5, against Detonation Focus Me, simply because he said, I'm never going to be better than Utapon in the AD carry position, so I'm going to have a team created around me. And of course, when Utapon moved back into the top lane, it opened up that spot, so kind of cool to see Zerost arrive out of Utapon's shadow and get this chance on an international stage.
Yeah, and of course Japan, a region overall that has a lot of talented AD carries. Maron, Zeros, Utapon, and despite Zeros, kind of falling flat a few times in this tournament, still a very good
It's his
AD carry.
first time on an international stage.
A lot of pressure on this guy, I can't actually imagine how it feels, but maybe feeling a little bit better after a confident win earlier today, and once again, not pushing for contention here in top 4. So a little bit more of that pressure relief. We saw how well that worked out for the Chiefs once the pressure was off. Maybe Detonation Focus Me in a similar position, but blue buff being contested here. Graves is going to steal that one away, but here comes the Soraka. Disengage with the pillar. Doesn't look like we're going to quite have a fight. No one following up.
Yeah, mid laners were both looking for the collapse. Good job again from Hard Random to eke out just a smaller advantage by smiting away that blue buff. PvP, kind of living up to his name this time around.
Starting to get aggressive here. Ketch may have pushed too far in. Does have the Lamb's Respite. Going to have to throw it down. Getting aggressive, but Eternal. It's going to be the 2v1. Steos starting to get healed up. The Silence coming out as well. Flashing and trying to get aggressive. Collateral damage not going to do it. The Exhaust saving the day. Sidestepping the Ezreal ult. And that's going to be Primera Sangre as Miracle picks up that first kill. Beautiful
play right there from Hard Random. Again, I don't know why Detonation Focus Me decided to go aggressive there. Graves is such an excellent counter. I'm not going to call it a hard counter, but an answer to Kindred because of his burst damage to follow up after the Lamb's Respite.
You just wait. Lamb's Respite goes down. You're like, all right, we can both take a heal. Oh, you're still at 300 health? Well.
It's just that beautiful feeling of, that most people are going to be low health standing on the Lamb's Respite, so you have all of these members crowding in a small area to try to get the heal back, and Graves is like AoE splash damage in burst form.
It's all that he needs.
Triple kill.
Now is Kira starting to get aggressed on by Saros. Saros running low on mana, but meanwhile, the Dragon is going to go down in the favor of Hard Random. Liquid using, full advantage of the Soraka in a variety of ways. One of them to force out this early Dragon, just the jungle and support duo.
Yeah, again, smaller advantages just creating snowballed gold leads. We do have a 2k lead in favor of Hard Random, and it's just off of these smaller, superior macro plays over Detonation Focus Me.
The one kill in addition, not major, more about as you said, the tower advantage or the faster tower take, adapting to the lane swap a little bit quicker than Detonation Focus Me were able to.
Cleaner rotations, it opens up more space for them to contest in the jungle. We see that in CS discrepancies pretty much across the board. Every single lane has an advantage, particularly between the 80 carries, 93 to 79. Again, about the 13 to 15 CS mark will equate to enough gold in terms of a kill. So that Lucian is technically like 2-0 over Ezreal, just gold value.
Yeah, doing well so far, and this is something that we, tend to see as the Ezreal falls behind early, has to itemize that tier, a lot of mana in the build, and Lucian playing, doing very well to play so aggressively and to make sure to put Ezreal behind in the early game when he is much stronger.
I also really like Essence Reaver users and lane swaps. I know this sounds bizarre because we're at a point where they're matching up 2v2, but because you itemize into Caulfield Hammer, it means that you have 2 long swords as opposed to the Infinity Edge, which obviously you can't crit a tower. So itemizing into more flat AD or more consistent flat AD is superior for sieging objectives. That sounds like really weird and like a really...
No, I see what you're saying, though. Overall, it's also just kind of a smoother build path as opposed to the Infinity Edge.
We'll see Jhin sometimes do this, whereas normally Jhin would prioritize an Infinity Edge into 2 Zeal items. If he's in a lane swap scenario, sometimes they'll look for the early Essence Reaver to compensate for the flat AD to push down towers quickly.
Definitely an option. Of course, Hard Random continuing their dominance on objectives over the map as once again the jungle support duo managed to pick up another one. That's Rift Herald going down in the favor of Hard Random. We'll have to see how they want to use that buff as it was given over to the Graves.
It's 2 times now in Graves, and Kira still just slugfest in this middle lane.
I think it's a tank echo mid lane.
A lot of flexibility on the build path, but I like the response from Hard Random. Azir, you can early pick him because he effectively will neutralize any sort of mid lane matchup. He does have counters like the Twisted Fate, like the Varus, as though, hold on.
Smurf getting aggressed on here. He's going to have to use the ultimate Eternal, starting to dish out a decent amount of damage. Pillar not available quite yet, but Exhaust is going down. Zeros could be hungry for blood, but there's a gank now going down on the top side as well. Steos taking a decent amount, but catch is already very low. Lamb's Respite up and available as Miracles just dishing out as much damage onto that tower as possible.
They have a really small window to siege this tower because you see the response coming in from Eternal. He's recalling and he's going to run top lane. So they maybe have another wave after this before this gets a little bit scary. You see Echo on the flank, they're forced to back off.
Yep, Utapon going to save that explosive cask. They have to respect that Gragas overall, though. It's just, you know, you can't get too close. You can't move too far up. Risk getting knocked back into that tower, especially with Trundle and Echo on the way. So good response from Hard Random.
Yeah, and what we were talking about, and also a great response from Detonation Focus Me to stall out that siege on the Rift Herald, is because Azir neutralizes most mid lane matchups, it's really hard to siege into an Echo anyway, as well as the Gragas being there because the wave clear is so strong and you don't have a ton of hard engage potential against the likes of Echo who can reset his positioning. So it makes sense that Hard Random are continuing to prioritize Rift Herald into side lanes.
Yeah, obviously getting an immense amount of damage on that top lane tier 2, so should be pretty easy to take down if they get another opportunity like the one they were just presented with. Once again, that gank in the bottom lane, or Zeros and Eternal getting aggressive in that 2v1, didn't really give them much of anything. Small amount of damage on the tower and forcing out a back. So overall, small advantages to Hard Random, but they're starting to stack up as the gold lead remains at 2K.
Dragon should be spawning within the next 2 minutes, 30 seconds, so starting to move their pressure back to
there's another blue buff. This
He's
man
caught.
is PvP Steos, PvE Steos. Is there anything he can't do?
It's that moment where the Trundle Pillar goes up behind him and he's like, I'm not stuck in here with you. You're stuck in here with me.
He just does so much damage. Already has the Warrior enchantment. Kindred, of course, opting for that Devour. It's going to take so long for that to be sated at this stage of the game, especially when Graves is going in every time one of your buffs spawns to take it away from you.
And that's what we were talking about. It's the consistent power spike that comes out of Graves versus the snowball potential that can come out of Kindred and why teams are prioritizing him.
Yep, now starting to get aggressive onto the tower. Eternal doing his best to soak up some of this damage, but power to Lucian and that double tap, the power of the Graves and the shotgun, as you're forced to burn out the ultimate to clear this wave. No dive coming out, just more damage placed onto the tier 2 towers.
Is this the Gunslinger comp?
I feel like we could definitely call it that. It's just so much tower taking potential.
Oh, here comes a deep TP from Gragas behind lines, though.
Right. May look for the explosive cask here as they start to push forward. Zeros going relatively low. I don't know if Hard Random know quite yet, but there's so much damage. There goes Utapon knocking PvP back into the team, but now the TP coming in on the side of Hard Random. Just going to disengage there overall. Maybe a little bit of fumble from Detonation Focus Me, not walking away with anything.
And the thing is neither mid laner is able to pull the trigger on the TP. Particularly because Kira can interrupt Seros's with the displacement on Emperor's Divide. And with Smurf answering the top lane TP, it's going to be another free chipped objective for Hard Random.
Yeah, once again, slowly but surely taking it down as Deos continues to move in and try to deny as much of these Devourer stacks as possible.
The question now becomes, where is the next objective for Hard Random? They have 30 seconds before the dragon spawns, which means that they need to reset their positioning right now if they want to heal and get back in time for that one. But at some point, they're going to have to look at the outer mid tower. So, Azir, you've had to neutralize lane. The farm has gone down. It's time to start consolidating the sources in there and looking for big playmaking ability.
Don't know if he's going to get it quite yet as Detonation Focus Me starts to turn their attention to the mid lane. Kira, very low on mana, may not have the opportunity to get out here. No hope for him. Soraka ult comes out, but it is just not enough. Staying far too long in that mid lane.
Great response from Detonation Focus Me to realize that this was the only objective and answer that they really had available on the map.
Yeah, very good overall. Now backing off. It's going to delay any kind of Dragon Timer coming in from Hard Random. Although Graves starting to move down to the bottom lane. Or maybe pushing in for some deep vision here. So Detonation Focus Me starting to fight back a little bit. Was a 4K gold lead just moments ago.
Yeah.
It's just too strong.
And again, they stand at the back of the pit, so that way, should someone face check over there, they can just ult themselves over the wall.
Yep. Relative safety overall as Hard Random now looking to return the favor. Put a little bit more pressure onto mid lane.
They have to pressure mid lane so they can make sure that no one will walk over to PvP here.
Yeah, Stejos backing out completely. Will be spotted out, though, by that pink ward, so Detonation Focus Me going to know that they're relatively safe to get aggressive here in the middle lane. And this is kind of a rough life so far for Detonation Focus Me, but it may start to get easier.
The thing is the primary playmaker on their team right now is Utapon because he has the power of the cask. That said, itemization isn't really in favor for Detonation Focus Me. They've got 2 Iceborne Gauntlets completed, but they're still waiting on the second power spike for Ezreal in particular. So they kind of have this moment where Hard Random are going to funnel resources into the mid lane. We noticed that they've now swapped Azir to a side lane. He does have the teleport, so he's able to match lane assignments quite well and still appear for team fights. But the big thing is that they're not splitting farm between Miracle and Kira. But this has this opening or this window of opportunity where Utapon can get a flank behind Soraka and just dump the cask behind her and pick up a free kill and try to translate that into pressure onto the mid lane with the Azir bottom.
And when we looked at Soraka in the Champions League, that's one of the things that we talked about is that she can be weaker overall in competitive play. Her weakness is very easy to expose if you're coordinated, but Hard Random just continuing to press in aggressively, keeping the Soraka safe and utilizing all that damage.
It's just such an unfortunate window because Utapon, like their Hard Random are in a position on the map where they've opened themselves up to a possible counterplay or a flank, but Detonation Focus Me don't have the items to back up on that execution.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's falling behind so early on. Still the 3K difference, but that's pretty massive 18 minutes into the game, you know? And especially looking at the Azir, who has finished that Nashor's Tooth now, the needlessly large rod available, just going to continue to scale up as we move forward.
Now moving up into the top lane, we do have Kindred shadowing underneath Utapon. TP comes out to draw tower aggro, and it's going to be another free objective for Hard Random. They're just running through Detonation Focus Me.
Absolutely dominating the map currently, extending that gold lead to 4K, and Detonation Focus Me only response is to throw that Echo into the bottom lane, but he's not going to get too much. Stejos, though, could be in trouble. Third stack. He's going to go down on that Kindred E, but not going to find it. Is Graves ever in trouble? I feel like that's the story of the day, is how many resources can we burn on trying to kill a Graves?
So tanky. Check out his itemization. Has the Hex Drinker up and online. He's dealing with he's dealing from a lot of magic damage. I mean, Ezreal even going to do mixed damage. That's unfortunate.
Knocking Lucian out. Stejos is just fine. Kira, though, could be in trouble. Is going to take that soldier to safety. His catch just doing whatever he can to dish out some damage. Graves instantly going to pop him. No Lamb's Respite going down. Clearly did not expect that one. Making it to safety courtesy of the Soraka. Echo determined to get something down here, but they just keep going. Gragas goes forward. No, he gets pushed back. Emperor's Divide. Too much for Detonation Focus Me to handle, and Hard Random picking up 2 kills already, looking for the third. Eternal going to flash to safety. End of the day, it's the 3-for-0.
And the beauty of that was how it was orchestrated by the Emperor's Divide. I'm not going to say that Kira was the primary damage dealer in that team fight, but by forcing and separating Detonation Focus Me, keeping that at arm's length, it keeps Soraka safe and allows her this free space to move around behind and to keep PvP alive. Graves survived through that entire ordeal because of Maokai and Soraka, and it was the Emperor's Divide that kept Soraka safe.
Yeah, very well played from the team overall. This is something we've seen from Hard Random. They're very comfortable when it comes to executing these fights, and Stejos clearly knows his own limits, you know? Keeps going in over and over again.
Front-to-back fights is what's really interesting to me. Not that Smurf can't pull the trigger on flanks, but the fact that that was a team fight where it's literally just 2 teams running at each other, and they orchestrated that beautifully. And that's actually something that Azir is really potent and powerful with, which sounds a little bit strange that Maokai is going to be a really strong flanking champion, but Azir is so good at setting a line of scrimmage and saying, you cannot pass this. So I do like the composition again, like going back to the Soraka, having a really self-sufficient AD carry in Lucian, so he's able to kind of skirt around an Emperor's Divide, while Maokai is just like, I'm in it.
And seeing this support in this jungle, Stejos and Lycra just going everywhere together on the map. And we're starting to see why, because Graves, once he starts stacking those resistances and is able to just get into these fights and stay fighting, he becomes a full-on tank. I mean, he just keeps getting to quick draw over and over again. And on top of that, the endless health pool, probably Windspeaker's Blessing as well coming out from this Soraka. And
You'd assume.
yeah, so many resources from Detonation Focus Me burned for nothing in that exchange. And unfortunately for Ketch, not even getting the opportunity to lay down that Kindred ultimate. Graves just does far too much damage. Like, maybe catching him off guard. I did not get to see if he was CC'd during that, but either way, a pretty big fumble. And Graves just starts the fight by taking out a key component of the Detonation Focus Me strategy.
Yep, and over again, we see teams continue to prioritize Graves. I'm curious when it's ever going to start drawing the bans in this particular matchup, because it's been the priority blue side pick. And it just, Graves has a very clear power spike. He's going to hit it either way. He thrives off of this mid game. Hard Random did a wonderful job speeding up the clock by accumulating a ton of global gold by taking down so many early structures. They played the lane swap quite cleanly, especially because Detonation Focus Me got a bit of a counter advantage when they started to push through to the second tower, but just not able to get enough chip damage down. But again, like, great job from Hard Random to say they're pushing through to second tower. Instead of cleaning up first tower and trading for 2, we're going to split our team in half, send some resources bottom to stall that, and
that
shot
adaptation
barrage.
looking pretty good. Ketch is going to have to back out of this one, and Kira dishing out so much. Could be in trouble, but this rock keeping him relatively healthy. Ketch going to throw down the Lamb's Rest, but Kira may be dead on the back of this one. No, is going to make it to safety. Not going to get the heal, but will make it out. Miracle going down, though. Overstaying is welcome. Here comes the Echo. Will the stun land? It is going to hit Smurf. They're just starting to back off here. So many tanky members. Kira now in trouble, 30% health threshold. That means Echo gets the executes. Saros finds the kill, and Stejos, as tanky as he is, don't think he can fight 3 members at the same time. Exhaust does have to come down. He just won't die, but will finally drop in the end as Detonation Focus Me ace the side of Hard Random.
Fantastic play from Detonation Focus Me. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see the setup for that, but it was very well executed, particularly because PvP was late to the team fight. His big tank line had already pretty much been destroyed, which means that DTM now get to look towards this.
DTM.
DFM. It's hard. Detonation Focus Me.
Yeah, got it overall. Now they set their
Nailed
sights
it.
on the Baron. Huge play of confidence. They get the ace. They go in. They take this one. 23 minutes in, they secure this, and despite still being behind in gold, starting to get an advantage in this game.
The beautiful thing about this is it's a 4-minute pause or a breather. Yes, they're still behind. Another team fight's still going to be absolutely terrifying, but it gives them 4 minutes to continue to consolidate farm, possibly mow down some of this freestanding objective gold.
This could be trouble for Miracle. He's desperately trying to burn through it, but here comes the Gragas. Not going to be enough. And Soraka actually going to secure the Dragon. That's third one over to Hard Random, but it's just a little bit of a reprieve before this Baron buff starts to work.
I'm just saying, level 1 Soraka Star Call picks it up with the Dragon. Now Ketch is in
Ketch
trouble.
very much in trouble, and the TP starting to come in from the Echo. We'll have to see if he wants to commit to this fight. Good use of that Star Call to deny the home guard boots there.
Could also just lay down silence.
Works pretty well. Denying that TP entry, and now Detonation Focus Me have to walk away empty-handed. Don't have the creep wave pressured up just yet, and not securing the Dragon either. It's a rough life.
And this is what we were talking about, the fact that this Baron isn't necessarily for going on the offensive, but for trying to play catch-up.
Yeah, it's doing well for them so far. And once again, this was first a 4K gold lead for Hard Random, and then a 2K gold lead, and now only a 1K gold lead as Detonation Focus Me are doing very well. They may be able to turn it completely in their favor with this buff, as Miracle not really feeling comfortable sitting under that tower against Saros, who is just so tanky.
They're starting to get their core itemization out. Again, last time we checked in on Ezreal, although Saros is going.
Doing a lot of damage with that Iceborne Gauntlet proc. Now just going to zoom out of there. Z-Drive Resonance, and they're finding their 5th tower of the game, only one away from tying it up with Hard Random, but the gold now completely even.
Saros has to be so careful right there. If Kira had decided to pull the trigger, it could have easily killed him.
Yeah, that's 2 hits, maybe 3 hits, just giving him the respect of assuming a teammate could be there to help him.
Yep.
But, Azir starting to scale up. Rylai's already finished, Nash was already finished, and dishing out so much damage with those 2 items.
Yep, but still waiting on kind of one big last core component before his core is up and online.
Hard Random, continue to push forward here. Stejos, no fear. We talk about getting the reprieve here, getting the opportunity to kind of force in to use this Baron buff as an advantage, and Steos just doesn't care. The man just keeps jungling, keeps taking the farm, keeps scaling up. Absolute terror.
Pretty massive, although didn't get the benefit of a lot of those kills sitting 1, 1, and 4. You have to think if half of those assists were in the kill column, would be a very different Graves. Still incredibly powerful, but...
Yeah, of course, but we have seen what happens when you can funnel all those kills onto the Graves, how quickly he can reach those item spikes, how quickly he can get to that Phantom Dancer or Black Cleaver or whatever he wants to itemize. It's pretty much all good for him. Now, however, he could be in trouble. Echo going to throw down the Parallel Convergence. More importantly, looking at the jungle matchup, the Devourer is now sated from catch, so in addition to the reprieve from the pressure Hard Random were putting out, it also gave him the opportunity to get some much-needed stacks.
Yep, see if he's able to translate this into late-game potential. As Kira continues to be a terror with the reach of
Zeros must
Azir.
just have a target on his back, because he just keeps getting hit out by that damage. Oh, Miracle could be in trouble, though. Has to back off here. Colin going to come out and do a decent amount.
Check out where Yutapon is right now. So Maokai hit the teleport, so he has his home guard. He's looking for a flanking play. Yutapon's actually standing in Fog of War, trying to figure out what the call is. Am I continuing to split push bottom and drawing Maokai back down, which is what they pull the trigger on, or am I looking for the TP? So both of these teams are setting themselves up to fight, but keeping their options open about how they want to win this game.
Good place to be. Of course, Yutapon recalling on that blue ward. Maybe not the best choice, but these top laners going to keep each other entertained for a few moments here. Start to push forward. Of course, kind of reaching a lull in the game. As you said, this is the pause button of the Baron. Hard Random, no real opportunity to play make just yet. And Detonation Focus Me, not really enough raw power to start diving out quite yet.
The big thing is that Yutapon's been so separated from them in these split push side lanes when his ultimate is so key to starting these fights.
Yeah, Explosive Cask, it's one of those ones that's so varied and depends so completely on the skill of the player, because some casks can decide team fights and some casks can, well, they always decide team fights, right? So the question is it in your favor or the other way? Exactly. Seros now pushing up on the top side. 3-1 and 0. This pick working out very well for him, despite it not being something we've seen in a while.
Check out his build.
Randwins, Spear of Visage, Iceborne Gauntlet, and Sorcerer's Shoes. An interesting blend of builds here. Not opting for the Sunfire Cape this time around, I guess just looking to reduce the crit damage coming in from that Lucian that may be coming in from Graves in the future if he does decide to build a Zeal item after what would appear to be a Black Cleaver on the Jungle Graves.
That's unique.
We've seen a little bit. Seros still getting a little cheeky here. Instant snapback on that ultimate, not going to commit to the Parallel Convergence, not going to find the stun.
TP behind him, though. Here comes Maokai.
Yeah, PvP Steos living up to his name. He's looking for the fight. Seros, no escape options now that that ult is no longer available. Doesn't have the mobility quite to get out of this one, and not going to stun the Lucian. Chasing forward, flash going off. He's just so tanky. Lucian trying to get in there, and Seros is going to go down. The slow burn, but Gragas is on the bottom side. Azir is down in the mid lane, and Detonation Focus Me are looking for an inhibitor.
And that's the big thing, that Seros was simply just a distraction. With so many resources put towards the top lane of chasing him down, Detonation Focus Me ravage Hard Random's base.
Moving in now. Steos could be in trouble. Starting to get a little bit too aggressive as Ketch moves forward, or is it Ketch who's been caught out? He hops back, is going to throw down the Lamb's Respite, but Smurf is in the back line. It's going to pop eventually. Are they going to have the damage? Steos running forward. Ketch going to get dropped. Eternal Willie be next. Yutapon so tanky, but there are 4 members now descending upon him. Starting to push in. Zero's going to get burned down as well in the back. We didn't get to see that one, but he will still drop. The silence coming out, stopping Yutapon from advancing. Hey, look, it's the tree, buddy. And here comes PvP Steos to make sure they get it. The double kill over to Smurf in the top lane.
I mean, eventually, Hard Random collapse. They win the team fight, but almost too little too late. Fortunately, an inhibitor doesn't go down, but that is an exposed inhib in the mid lane. Baron up in 45 seconds, Dragon up in 14. They do have their pick of the litter in terms of setting up for monster objectives or outright taking one, but quite a disaster for Hard Random on their overextension for Seros top.
And really, at the end of the day, those kills, while important, aren't going to transition to nearly as much. That inhibitor tower taken down. Normally, when we see teams struggle to close, it comes to breaking that inhibitor line, but that inhibitor tower's down. 29 minutes in, Hard Random pushing for their 4th dragon. That's absolutely massive, but once the inhibitors start to drop, Detonation Focus Me could quite easily start to close out this game.
Big thing is going to be how these teams are setting up and posturing around Baron now. Teleport is down for Smurf, whereas Yutapon and Seros both have theirs available, so Detonation Focus Me does have the stronger map presence if they try to exploit that and tear Hard Random around the map.
And additionally, despite Ketch suffering with the 0-3-4 scoreline, he does still dish out absurd amount of damage onto those neutral objectives. Really could take down the Baron quite quickly if given the opportunity here. interesting choice from Saros there. Now starting to move into the Baron pit, of course. A little bit of vision placed down here from Hard Random. Trying to make sure that they do not give this one up uncontested. As Yutapon goes back to his duties in the bot lane, making sure this wave is pushed out. As he said, he does have the TP, so he has the freedom to be wherever he wants at this stage of the game.
Here we go, though. Both teams kind of moving into the area to contest and prioritize over vision. You do have 2 sweepers up for Detonation Focus Me, but only 1 available for Hard Random, and both teams have both trinkets available.
Good option. We'll buy them some time, of course. Got to clear those out one at a time if you want to opt to take that Baron, if you want to bait someone into a fight, either way.
It's really important, especially as both teams have Eye of the Equinox. I can never.
Eye of the Equinox.
Eye of the Equinox. The upgraded Sightstone item that allows you to place another ward.
Eye of the Oasis, actually, on Soraka. They all have different names.
It's
Isn't
really
that great?
fun. Eye of the Watcher is the third one. No, but why this item is important, especially as we look to contesting this Baron, is because you're able to keep all of your 3 primary wards up on the map, as well as trade your 4th ward for one of those sweepers or the denial. And again, when you're setting up for Baron vision, the biggest thing is who's going to lose it first and who's going to be patient enough to sit and play with Fog of War. And that's why those items, not only the added CDR, when they were changed, have now become kind of the staple for the support, but more importantly, being able to trade that extra ward for vision, as Yutapon, really deep.
Looking for the flank here. He's going to have the opportunity to go in. Miracle trying to make it to safety, but here comes Eternal. Great pillar, great cask, and now it looks like the Lucian will drop. Soraka doing his best to heal. He's going to make it out to safety. Steos can't take him out quite yet. Steos just backing off, and that's 3 kills
They
picked
just
up
won the game.
instantly. They just won the game.
They just won the game.
Detonation Focus Me pushing down mid lane. There's only 2 members left to defend, but Graves, no matter how tanky he is, just doesn't have the damage to take on all 5 members. And you're right, Detonation Focus Me now getting aggressive, pushing in for the win. They may not have the creep wave, but they have the team.
They have one coming in for them, Smurf, and they have to play like gods here.
See if Hard Random can get the outplay here. They're moving in, Smurf getting burned down, Eternal making to safety. Lamb's respite is huge. It's going to save the day as they're now setting their sights on that first tower. Creep wave coming in to back them up. Now looking to close as Sero says, stay host, you're not getting anything else here. Doesn't care how dominant he was in the early game. Not concerned as Detonation Focus Me, despite not making it into the top 4, are going to close out this game with confidence.
They just took down the top-rated team. This is the first place team in the international wildcard right now, falling to Japan, who's sitting right down near the bottom. That was a phenomenal finish from Detonation Focus Me, utilizing the Lamb's Respite to stall long enough not only to tank the towers, but to stall for the incoming creep wave. Yutapon was split pushing that entire game, finally pulls the trigger on a deep teleport behind, and gets the cask that we expected.
What is happening in International Wildcard? The second the pressure is off, these teams go absolutely nuts. This is the form we expected a lot of these teams to be in coming into this tournament. Didn't quite see it. Wasn't sure if it was a difference in international skill, but Detonation Focus Me showing up huge. The Chiefs showing up. When the pressure is off, these guys absolutely perform. That was, I mean, they fell behind to Hard Random, still managed to pull out a win, still managed to pull out team fights. That's one of the hardest things to do in League of Legends is play a game from behind.
Yeah, that completely underlined that aspect. The fact that they were behind, that they were able to translate into the Baron, that they used the Baron to consolidate farm, to tie it back up, and then to make the high pressure play. It was also on macro performance in particular. Like, the fact that it came down to a TP flank, it wasn't like both teams were just running at each other and it's a coin flip, you know, 65k gold, 75k, whatever it was, everyone's sitting at 6 items. It wasn't the case that game, but sometimes it comes down to that. It's just, you know, 50-50 who got the better ultimate. It was engineered, it was manufactured, and it was planned to have a turn like that from such an underdog team. Again, Japan's region has 6 teams in it. It's one of the smallest of the wildcard regions. They just got their server. Huge international spotlight on them right now because they have massive media coverage. To come back, especially so deep in the tournament, and find a victory like this is massive.
And with huge confidence, too. We talk about CIS. We talk about Hard Random specifically as the SKT of the CIS region. And with that in mind, we expected these guys to completely dominate, and they have for the most part of this bracket, or sorry, of this round-robin stage. I'll keep calling it bracket stage accidentally. But now getting taken down by Detonation Focus Me. We talked about national pride here. We talked about the pressure on the Japanese teams to perform now that they have a server, now that there is a lot expected of them. And despite not making it to top 4, great opportunity for Detonation Focus Me to show off, and they did it completely.
I believe that this also opens up a possibility for Supermassive. I'll have to check the head-to-head against Hard Random, but they're sitting right now at 4-2, whereas Hard Random are now at 5-2.
So the opportunity there to secure that first seed over. Yeah. And overall, I think what impressed me the most that game was the fact that despite falling behind, and more than anything, they close with confidence. Like, so frequently in this tournament, we've seen, I think yesterday, INTZ, DFM, we saw huge advantages, opportunities to close out the game, passed back and forth, 65-minute game, very sloppy. And I thought that maybe both these teams couldn't figure it out, but Detonation Focus Me absolutely have today. It was engineered, as you said, and additionally, it takes a lot of guts to pull that trigger to know that you can just end the game, that you can risk throwing it right back to the opposition there, but perfect use of the Lamb's Respite. Excellent confidence coming in from the team, and at the end of the day, looking so fantastic. I wish we could have seen this team at every stage of the round robin.
It's so brilliant because it's not even just the teleport play. Like, the more that I think about the setup, like, think about the setup that goes into that. You know that the Baron is going to be the next big contested thing. You know that a front-to-back fight where Azir is just running at you, where he gets to get into an area and set up his sand soldiers, he's got his consistent damage already output, that you're probably going to lose that you're really relying on a disruption or a cask. And to say, instead of walking into Baron, which Hard Random very clearly have the superior vision control on, we were talking about that, they got into the area early, they had control of the Scuttle Crab, that would just be suicide. So instead, they take control of the mid lane and they start pushing that down, and it forces Hard Random out of the Baron area to sit and come to the mid lane, and then that's when they pull the trigger and get Utapon behind them for the. So it's not just a flank play from a teleport. It's engineering exactly where they wanted that flank play to happen by taking control of a minion wave.
Well, huge implications here, of course, for Supermassive potentially, as they could drop that first seed overall. And while Detonation Focus Me may not have secured a top 4 spot, they're doing very well overall. We'll have to see if today will be yet another day of upsets as we look forward to our next match. But in the meantime, don't go anywhere as we go to a quick break.